Hey guys, this is SCdigger. Back in October of 2018, I had the privilege of being the guest on Adventures in Dirt's Digger Spotlight. DK does a great job in promoting the hobby. He does interviews on the Digger Spotlight with key YouTube, I guess you could say, creators that are out there posting their finds and their adventures online. He does the weekly Dirt, where he highlights the top digs and finds from around the world on a weekly basis. And so to be one of the guests on his show was really a great opportunity. Now, I know the large majority of my subscribers probably didn't get a chance to see the interview. So DK has graciously given me the opportunity to repost a large portion of this interview here, and I'm posting it for you guys to kind of see a little bit into the mind of SCdigger, kind of where I've come from and what my philosophy is about digging. But what I want each and every one of you to do is to go over to Adventures in Dirt. I'll put a link in the description below. Go over to Adventures in Dirt and subscribe. You won't be disappointed if you do that, and that's the least we can do for DK and the efforts that he's putting out towards the hobby. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. It's long. I'll go ahead and admit it. It's long. This is probably the longest video I've ever put up on it, the Saving History channel. Probably almost an hour long. So go ahead and get you something cold to drink and get ready to learn a little bit about SCdigger.
Yeah, great. Good to see all these people here. Let me get over to our screen here and see what we got going on. So, hey, Greg, why don't we start? Hey, and I have to apologize to you, man. You're a very special guest to me. You have so much that we can talk about. We may go longer than an hour. I don't know if we're going to get it
nowhere to be.
That's awesome. Well, let's start. I mean, whatever made you get into metal detecting? Of all the things we could do in this world, what made you get into metal detecting?
Yeah, I can remember growing up. I've always had an affinity for history anyway. I grew up in Central Alabama, and I can remember 7, 8 years old starting to pick up Native American stuff. We'd go hunting. My dad would be out in the dove field. They'd be hunting. They wouldn't let me shoot, a gun. So I wandered around picking up rocks, and it kind of was instilled in me from a very early age. And I remember I had a Radio Shack, metal detector. Have no idea what brand it was, but 10 years old, and as long as it was on top of the ground, you could hear the signal. But it was kind of weird. For my 10th anniversary, I remember my wife and I talking about, well, it's a special anniversary. What do you want for your anniversary? And I said, I want a real metal detector. And she would look at me like I was crazy. And I got online, did some research, and I bought a real metal detector at the time. And, little did I know what it was going to get me into when I did that. From that first machine, I probably upgraded from it within 2 or 3 months. And that was almost 20 years ago that started me on this this obsession, I guess.
What'd you upgrade to?
Well, the very first machine I ever had was a quick draw 2 bounty hunter, and found some stuff with it. And the next machine I got was a Fisher CZ5, and then from there I went to, I've probably 20 plus different machines since then. I've used Tesoro. I used a lot of Tesoros early on. Tesoro Lobo Super Track was a really good. It was made as a gold machine, but it was a really good Relic machine. Probably my favorite machine that I wish I still had was my Shadow X5. Troy built an amazing machine, made some amazing finds with it, and somewhere along the way.
What is that? I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that.
Well, a Troy Shadow He had a line of detectors. He had an X2 that was basically a Tesoro. Then he came out with an X5 and an X3 that were were his own design. And again, it was kind of an overbuild. I mean, it was an over the top quality machine, and there weren't a lot out there. If you ever come across a Troy X5 for sale, I would suggest buy it, because if I find one, I'll probably get another one just because it was such a great machine.
Really, really.
And then
That
have
sounds.
continued on, and now I'm using Technetics machines. I've used Technetics Fisher. I've used Nautilus, everything across the board. So I
Yeah.
think I've learned over time, though, it's not so. The machine has a lot to do with it, but the user has a lot to do with it as well. Just experience and learning what you're hearing and swinging it, getting out there and hunting.
Yeah, spending that time with it for sure. Everyone has their own favorite of what type of machines they're swinging. And somebody once said, the best machine out there is the one that you learn to master, the one that you learn to put the time in and really master. And, I've only been doing this for a few years. So, I mean, I don't have anywhere near the experience you guys do, but I tend to believe in that. You put the hours in, you get to learn those little squeaks before and after the tone, those can tell you an awful lot. So, that's awesome. So you're from South Carolina, yeah? Born and raised, or
Sorry, I
born
caught
and
you off
raised?
screen.
Like, that's all right.
Like I said, I grew up in central Alabama, moved to actually Clemson, South Carolina when I was about the ninth grade, and have been here ever since. And so, I'm not in the low country, which I do get down there a lot. I mean, the low country of South Carolina is kind of like Mecca, as far as relic hunting goes. But being in South Carolina, both from relic hunting and Native American stuff, we don't have any lack for having places to go.
Yeah, I bet. So, you talked a lot. So, okay, what is your what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Can we go there?
Personal
Yeah.
stuff's great. I mean, I think it helps to get to know who we're watching and listening to. So I am a professor of communication at the local technical college. So I've been teaching public speaking at the local college for 22 years. So
Oh, I'm in
yeah,
trouble.
and actually I had my undergraduate degree was in communications. I thought I was going to be the next Ted Koppel. I was going to go into to media and be on TV, and I didn't, obviously, but I was mass comm major, got my master's degree in mass comm at Auburn, and had the experience of teaching as a graduate student. But that's kind of what led me into getting into video work, because back when I was learning how to do it, we were using tape. And to edit, you had to sit down with all the machines. You had to set edit points, and it was quite a labor-intensive process. And then all of a sudden, I discovered digital video, and that you could do this on your computer at home. And I can remember watching a fella, Mudslide Slim, Sal Guttiso.
Mudslide
Yeah,
Slim.
Sal Guttiso. And some people out there may know Sal, because he still runs trips to England, and he's involved in the hobby. And Ozarks Detector, I see your questions over there, so we'll certainly get to those. There was probably 5 of us putting up metal detecting videos back 2005, 2006, and I saw him putting up
Wow,
videos.
that long ago. Wow,
Oh yeah,
that's
and I
so
said,
wow.
I can do that. And I had my little Kodak camera. I think I probably was shooting at 240, 360 frames per second. I mean, it was it was very, very. I mean, it looked like we were videoing with a potato. If you go back and watch my early videos, they're grainy,
Yeah.
and they're really kind of hard to get through.
I think
But
some of your earlier videos was from DIV, wasn't it? Wasn't
yeah.
it from a DIV dig?
Yeah, and the thing is, I go back and look, and I mean, because I had the opportunity to go to about 17 different DIVs, and probably for the first half of those, I wasn't shooting video. You know, I can remember Sal actually was shooting video when they discovered the corduroy road, and so he has video of it, but really nobody else was doing it. And I look back and go, the things that I could have covered if I was doing it then. Now, you know, like I said, there was 5 of us doing it when I started, and there's, you know, 5,000 of us doing it now. But that's great because that gives everybody an opportunity to record their finds you know, and show others what they're doing. And
Yeah, I think in doing my research with you and
dog.
trying to, where's your dog?
The dog, she just appeared.
Yeah, what's her name?
That is Essie, as in
Essie.
SC.
So
Essie.
that's awesome. I think I saw that video on that corduroy road. That was pretty impressive.
One of the most amazing things I've ever seen uncovered.
Yeah, yeah. I think also, you know, that was a real old video there. Yep. And earlier on, I think I was watching one of Bo's videos over at Aquachigger, and he found corduroy road kind of in the side of an embankment of a river not too long ago. So that was pretty incredible, and just learning about that and all the stuff that could be in there. I mean, it's just endless.
The stuff they were pulling out of that, because they were 6 feet deep, and it was what preserved it. It was down in the mud, and when they were pulling out leather goods, things like brogans, you know, boots, sheaths for bayonets. They were pulling out the leather from cappies. The buttons that were coming out of the ground were still brass, and they weren't gold gilded. They were just brass and not tarnished. The bullets were gray. You know, they hadn't turned white. It was crazy. And somebody, you know, Ozark asked earlier, what was the most amazing thing that made you go, wow? Seeing that corduroy road uncovered, that made me go, wow.
Wow. Now, were you able to dig that road? Were you able to dig in there with them guys?
I wasn't in that trench.
Okay.
I uncovered, I probably dug 10, 11 huts at various DIVs. Most of these, this was at Stoneman Switch. So basically DIV 1 through 5 was at Stoneman Switch. There was one in the middle that went somewhere else, I think. But this was the train depot, basically the supply depot right there in Stafford. And I dug a lot of huts there. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the pit. Now, all of a sudden, you know, as they dug, the wall started caving in, and they made them close it back in because it became a safety issue. But
how many of them DIVs have you been to, Greg?
I think about 17.
Wow.
I just got in. People keep going, why haven't you been to another DIV? And I got to it. I teach, so when I can get off work is just kind of limited, and they kind of made a shift as when the DIV was, and it interfered with when I could get off of school, and it you know, like I said, just wasn't able to take time off, and so there was a couple of years there where I didn't go to Culpeper at all. Now, I have been to a few of James Bibb's just go detecting hunts. He's a good friend of mine. He invited me up, and so I've been back to Culpeper. And I mean, I think it's a hard place to hunt. The ground is highly mineralized. If you don't have the right equipment, you can struggle. You know, certain machines, you know, PIs work real well, VLFs struggle unless you know how to use them. Going back to that Shadow X5 that I mentioned, the Troy Shadow, that was before people were using PIs, before people were using the TDI, before people were using the Infinium up there. I was digging targets with that X5 in that, they call it the red dirt of Culpeper, but it's like mineralized powdered iron, and was digging stuff. So yeah, you have to have the right equipment too. So it's hard hunting.
So you still have that machine?
Which one? The X5?
The Shadow.
No, somewhere along the way I decided it was a good idea to sell it, and yeah, it's gone. And so,
do you regret that?
Oh, absolutely. I wish I had it back because it was a great machine. I'm sorry, the dogs decided to.
That's all right. She's coming on in.
I'll turn so you can't see her.
So. I'm checking out your background there. What's that uniform about over there on the?
Okay. See, I used way back once upon a time. I used to reenact, and just before I had kids, and I had an amazing Confederate kit. I mean, I went all out on replicating, you know, authenticity and everything. But one of the things that everybody, no matter what side you reenacted, especially Confederate. You always had a Union kit. You always had a Federal uniform in case they needed to throw you on the other side, because sometimes you go to reenactment and you had, 200 Confederates and 30 Union soldiers. And
Little unfair
so,
fight.
yeah, so that was, it wasn't worth selling. I couldn't make anything from my Union kit, so I kept it. So it looks good in the Relic room as far as display goes. I know, I'm being funny, guys.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We Tar Heel Digging wants to know, hey, rank your favorite type of hunting from colonial to Civil War to Native American artifacts. I mean, what's your 1, 2, 3? What's your lineup there?
Okay, this may surprise you, but Native American stuff is number one for me. I've
Oh
been
boy.
doing that over 35 years. Again, growing up in Central Alabama, that's where I got my start, my love for history. Um, Honestly, I have to say it's a close tie between Civil War and colonial. I've always been a Civil War relic hunter, but once me and Russ found that British camp here in the upstate of South Carolina, once it gets in your blood, oh, I mean, we were digging stuff. You're digging stuff 250, 300 years old,
Yeah.
and where we found this camp, that was before, Charleston was a city. That was the frontier, basically the upstate of South Carolina.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to rank colonial versus Civil War because, you know, and when I say colonial, you can find a colonial home site where you dig some flat buttons and things. But when you get into colonial military stuff, hard to beat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey, everyone in chat, why don't you guys throw up what your favorite type of hunting is? For those of you that hunt different types of two different types of hunting, why don't you guys throw up what you guys like in there in chat? And for those of you that just joined us, I want to welcome you to Digger Spotlight. Our guest tonight is Greg Toney with Saving History with SCdigger. If you don't know about his channel, definitely look down in the description. I got links to his website. I got a link to his YouTube page, to his Facebook page, and also to his Instagram account. So check him out. He's been around for a long time, and he's got a lot of great stuff on there. He's been doing a lot of stuff. So what's some of your favorite early memories of out there digging? Like some, not really like, oh, wow, but sort of, hey, that was a really cool experience when I did that.
I have to think about one of my best memories of digging. Probably used to dig with a fellow named John Miles, good buddy of mine down. He lived down in I just lost the name of it. The horse races. I want to say Chapin. It's not Chapin. It's down below Columbia. Somebody post here. Where are the horse races down the south part of South Carolina? It'll pop in my head. But anyway, we got down there and we actually found a virgin Confederate camp. And, nowadays to find, and this was probably still 10 years ago, to find a virgin anything, whether it's a home site or a Civil War camp or anything like that, is amazing. And I can remember, he had gotten access or permission to the site, and it was actually along where the retreat route, Camden, by the way, Camden, it just popped in my head. It was along the retreat route for the Americans from the Battle of Camden, and so we were chasing, Rev War stuff is what we were looking for. And so, there were, pretty big property. It had been timbered and everything. And so I remember telling him, okay, I'm going to head up to the top of this hill to see what's here. And he, John was going to head around the other way. And I got to the top of the hill and got a really good signal. And it turned out to be the frame from a coin purse, like the little, where it would have had a leather bag. You opened it up.
Little top snap.
Okay, so that's a good brass target. And I said, okay, well, I better slow down. Maybe there is a coin laying around here. A couple of feet away, got another, just probably the sweetest tone you could ever imagine. And I was like, sounds good. Maybe I got me a coin from the coin purse. And dug it up, and it turned out to be a Confederate staff officer's button. And then it was on, because basically every 2 feet we were digging good brass targets. Gun parts, sword. I dug a sword out of it.
Wow.
Lead, brass, like bullets and musket balls. We were digging toe plates and heel plates. I say gun parts. I think we ended up with 16 or 17 Confederate buttons out of it by the time we were done. They were South Carolinas. They were script eyes, block eyes. It was amazing. So, if I had to pick something, that has to be it.
Wow. Hey, Mr. Terry Solomon wants to ask, do you sell your finds? Have you ever sold your finds?
I I do not sell finds that I personally dig. Now, let me qualify that. I once upon a time I dug. I dug. Well, I sold a lot of thimbles that I had dug, and I think I maybe got $8 for them, and regretted it after I did it. I was like, I wish I had those thimbles, but and that was probably, that's like 15 years ago. I did that,
Huh. Hmm.
and now to say that I have bought relics or collections from other people who I know they're good relics to just have in my collection, and I have sold them after the fact. Like for example, I just sold some buttons recently because I was in the process of buying a new camera.
Hmm.
But there weren't buttons I dug. So I don't dig my personal finds. Too much work and effort goes into it. And but if it's something I don't really have an attachment to, yeah, I will, but I don't dig personal stuff.
Right. All right. Well, hey, let's start talking about a little bit about machines. What are you swinging these days?
My go-to machine right now is a Technetics T2, and I've got I bounce around from it. I'm trying to figure out what my dog is doing back here.
Chewing
Uh,
up your uniform. Keep her with the
that's
uniform.
Essie, by the way. If you're just logging in,
All right. What's
I've
up,
got the
Essie?
tech. I switch between the Technetics T2. I got the T2 Plus and the T2 SE or the Limited. It depends on whether you're from America or England, whether it's the Limited or the SE. But the I really like the boost mode on the Plus, which they took
Mhm.
from the Limited, but it's still simplified like the Classic. But just having the boost mode doesn't mean always to run in it, because if you like, I've found like in really heavy iron, sometimes that can overload the machine. So sometimes you might want to take it off the boost mode and run it, in say, 2+ tones or something like that, and it can read the ground a little bit better. But yeah, right now I'm a T2 user.
Yeah. Digging with Deej sent this question in via email to me, and you all can do that too. If you guys see a guest I have coming up and you want to send me questions ahead of time, just send them to DK at Adventures in Dirt, like Digging with Deej did. And she wants to know, do you think the T2 is more of a relic machine than a coin machine?
Well, I've dug a lot of coins with the T2, so the one I wear. I know you can't see it, but it's a 1788 2 real that I dug at a plantation site here, actually here in the upstate of South Carolina. Dug it with a
Wow.
T2.
How long ago was that?
Just a couple. It was a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow. Nice.
But I I think it's a great coin machine. Obviously it's a great relic machine. I think the biggest advantage it has is its ability to deal with heavy iron. And so, like when you're talking recovery speed, so like if you're coin shooting, say in a park where you don't have a lot of iron to deal with,
Yeah.
it may be, I guess I'm trying to say maybe you don't need as much as the T2. So other machines can do well. I think your T2 is still going to do well, but if you get into a house site and you're looking for old coins, you're going to be able to separate whether it's silver or copper, like a large cent or something like that, very effectively. Now, honestly, we hunt with the 5-inch coil most of
Oh,
the
yeah.
time. Even in a field, we'll pull the 5-inch coil out because one, it makes you slow down to cover more ground, but it separates the targets out amongst the iron, to me, a lot more effectively.
Yeah, I don't have a smaller coil. That's something I really want to get,
I think
is a
everybody
smaller
should
coil.
have that in their arsenal. Honestly, deeper is not necessarily always better. You want to make sure you can hear the tone out of the middle of the iron. So, yeah, bigger coils might get you more depth. but I think maybe sometimes that's not everything.
Yeah. I do have a T2 though.
I wonder where you got
You know
that.
I have a T2, right?
Yeah, I know where you got that. I gave it to you. Well, I didn't give it to you. I
Greg is
gave it
such a nice
away
guy.
to
I
you.
called him and said, "Can I have a T2?" And he just said, "Sure, Ken. Here you
Here,
go."
who else? Who
Nice
else wants
guy.
a T2? Just give me your name. I'll send you one. I wish.
No, Greg
No,
was having
Ken was in one. He entered one of our YouTube contests, and Technetics was generous enough to. I think we gave away a T2 and a Patriot in that giveaway,
right.
and so yeah, Ken won the T2.
I did. I was so excited. I was in the middle of a supermarket. My buddy there, Tony, 5280 Ventures, texted me. He said, "You just won SCdigger's giveaway for." Woo! I'm yelling in the middle of the grocery store. I made quite a scene. So that was definitely exciting. Yeah, and I love that machine. Love that machine. Absolutely. So I have the Patriot and the T2. So
And both
yeah,
great machines. Both, and basically the Patriot is an F70. It's just rebranded. And I mean, and honestly, when it came down to the F75 and the F70, I like the F70 better than the 75. I don't know why. I just
I've heard that. I've heard that a lot, actually.
And Tiger Paul says, "Where's Palmetto?" I think he's probably taking care of all of his daughters. He has 4 daughters, so he's probably doing the daddy thing tonight.
So I just threw up a picture of Russ, your digging partner, Paul Meadow, as he's known. I just threw up a picture there. Yeah.
And I have to apologize because my feed is dragging, so I'm not watching all the pictures coming up as they go.
Yeah.
I'm watching our feed, so I'm not seeing all the pictures. So if you do put something up,
I'll let you know. Yeah.
Let me know.
I'll let you know what you're looking at, what you're not looking at.
Exactly.
That's the way this goes sometimes. The technology of putting one of these things on is a little tricky. It's not 100% worked out yet, but we're trying to get there. We're trying to get there.
Having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So first find. Let's talk about first find. Or first silver. Let's talk about first silver.
Okay, first silver. I have to say that my first silver, actually my first significant find was probably on my second hunt ever. I had gotten permission at a late 1800s house site that was actually the offices for the local American Red Cross office, and had dug a couple of, I don't know, just pieces of junk, and got a real good signal with my bounty hunter quick draw 2, and pulled up a silver coin, which I looked at it and said, "This doesn't look like any silver coin I've ever seen." And it turned out to be a 2 Reichsmark, in a Nazi period, World War II period silver coin, because it has the swastika and everything on it.
I put a picture of it too, so just so you know, I got a picture up below you there.
Yeah, and so as as that goes, I didn't even realize that I'd really dug, because I'd never dug silver before, and so I was like, okay, this is cool. But then once I realized what it was, I was like, this is real cool, and it's kind of like gold fever. Once it gets in your blood, you're like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I like this. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that 2 Reichsmark, it'll always it's it's not, it has no real big value or anything, but it always sits right in the center of my display cabinet.
Yeah, it's an awesome looking coin. I know we talked about it, and I was able to go out and grab a video of it. I mean, actually a photo of it. So yeah, looking cool, looking really great. So what about, I'm going to put up a picture here. You tell me a little bit about it. I'm going to put a picture of you holding a U.S. plate. And where did you find that at? Was that at a DIV or was that at a different dig?
No, the plate there came from a DIV, and I don't remember which number it was, but it was actually the first plate I ever dug, and we were up on, I guess, what became known as I guess it was the Wisconsin camp. And I mean, people who've been to a DIV, you'll know which one, at Brandy Rock, that was a Wisconsin camp. And I got a good signal using the Garrett Infinium, and the target I dug out of the hole was actually a silver mechanical pencil. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And so, once I, finished finding the target, I swung back over the hole, got another target, and started digging around and saw the white of what was going to be a plate. I mean, when I saw the white lead, the back end, I was like, I know what this is. And so
Wow.
I ran up the hill, got one of my buddies, and so that way he could run the camera while I was digging it out. It was kind of cool that while I was digging out, Steve Sylvia from North South Trader. I mean, I'm not sure if you know Steve, but he's kind of a legend in the hobby.
Mm.
He happened to be right there when I was digging, so it was kind of cool to have somebody who's really kind of considered, a grandfather of relic hunting there when I found my first plate.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, nothing's like digging your first one. I had the shakes and everything from that.
I bet that is just absolutely amazing. Hey, Ozark Detectors wanted to know a little bit. Have you ever had a fear of putting yourself out there on the videos? A fear of sitting in front of the camera. I mean, how'd you get over that one? A lot of people don't like getting in front of the camera.
It was kind of weird, and I guess it probably comes to the fact that I teach, and public speaking is not that big of a deal for me. And when I first started doing it, there weren't that many people watching us anyway. So I don't know. Putting yourself out there is a hard thing to do. But one of the things that I learned early on in the process is for your channel to really grow, and for people to connect with you, they need to know you and see your face rather than just hear your voice and seeing the target you dug. So I think I realized it was a necessity early on, and not that I was trying to make myself famous, because by no means I'm not famous. I'm no Nugget Noggin or Bo Wimette, Aqua Jigger. Not that I wouldn't, take their subscribers in a second. But just trying to be who you are, and and that's always been my philosophy about my channel anyway, is that if I didn't have something good to show, I wasn't going to show it. If I had some finds, I would show them. If there's so much video I've shot that's never made it to YouTube because I didn't think it was worth somebody else's time to sit down and watch. But yeah, that's probably the hardest thing to overcome in terms of starting a channel, is that apprehension of talking to a camera and then putting it online for potentially thousands of people to see. So some people are more comfortable with it than others, I guess.
You ever had an embarrassing situation where you've been out sort of in public and you're trying to put something on film and everyone's looking at you like you're just talking to this inanimate object?
Yeah, well, no, it's, at hunts, that's not that big a deal because most everybody knows what you're doing. But, I've done some video, like my wife and I have several antique booths, so we do a lot of thrifting, a lot of, estate auctions and things like that. And so, I'll take my camera into the thrift store every once in a while. And, first of all, just trying to make it obvious that I'm recording. And then, of course, if I'm like in, the thrift store, also make it look like I'm not walking around talking to myself. It's that I have a little bit of apprehension about, just being in public. But like I said, in the metal detecting world, especially at an organized hunt, most everybody knows what you're doing anyway. But yeah, in public, it's a little bit more difficult.
I was watching one of your early videos, and it was funny. You're walking around one of the DIVs, and everyone had that look on their face. Everyone had that look on their face, like, guy's putting a camera in my face. You know what I mean? Because you're just filming everyone, but it wasn't as normal of a thing back then as it is now. So everyone looked a little shocked.
No, when I very first started doing it, and doing videos and going to organized hunts, again, it was like me and Sal were like the only couple of guys that were really putting together videos. There was very few of us doing it. Matter of fact, I remember, and I don't remember which DIV it was, but I remember Rose Kendrick, she contacted me before the event. She says, do you happen to have a hat and a DVD that you might could give away? And I said, yeah, sure. And she goes, well, we've got a kid that's coming to the hunt with his granddad, and he says that you are kind of his I hate to say idol because it sounds so bad, but he really looks up to you as far as relic hunting goes. And it turns out it was Nugget Noggin.
No kidding.
And
No
so,
kidding. No
the very
kidding.
first time I met Michael was at a DIV, and he was probably 14, 15 years old at the time. And yeah, he wanted one of my hats and DVDs. Now,
That's been
I mean,
awesome.
he, I hate to say it, he makes a living doing this because
Right.
he's got an incredibly successful channel,
Right.
and I could only wish for a tenth of that, YouTube success. I mean,
Sure.
and let me say that I don't do this for the subs, or I mean, I definitely don't make a living doing it for sure. I started doing this. I always told myself I was going to video my hunts whether anybody watched it or not because it was
Yeah.
my way of recording and preserving for history what I've found. People do it in logbooks or however they record it on the computer. The video record was my log of my finds, and if some people wanted to watch that, great. And I mean, I've just passed over 14,000 subscribers, and
Awesome.
all you in the live chat over here, you're in YouTube right now. If you don't subscribe to Saving History with SCdigger, go do it. Then, well, do it after the show's over, but do it while you're in YouTube.
You can
But
multitask. Come on. You
but
guys
yeah,
can
I
do it.
didn't do it for I didn't do it because of that. That's not why I started. But yeah, it's kind of cool to be able to go places and have a conversation with somebody who says, "I loved seeing that," or "You inspired me." I mean, I've had people that say, "I got into detecting because of watching your videos." That's great. That's awesome.
All right, Greg, here comes the question. Do you have a favorite find? Do you have a favorite find?
Favorite find. Okay, I probably link to two things. When I started this hobby, my goal was to dig a South Carolina Civil War button. I mean, that's why I started. I said, I want to dig a South Carolina button. And about 2 months in, I found a little Confederate camp up here in the upstate of South Carolina. Only one I've found up here. And dug a silver South Carolina button. So I'm like, okay, well, 2 months in, I can't quit. So no, that still was one of my goals. But I mean, I think really my favorite find is one that probably has the most historical value and probably the most monetary value, even though I'd really never sell it. I'll let my children worry about that. Probably goes to my Charleston slave tag. It represents a very, unfortunately, dark period in our history, but it's also very important for us to recognize and remember that. I, it's there's no more than about 200 or 300 known in existence. They only
I threw a
exist.
picture up. Is that it? Is that the
Okay.
picture? Are you able to see
Let
that?
me see if again because my feed's not really
Okay.
loading.
So,
So I'm gonna hit the reload here, refresh, and see if it shows up. Hopefully, it won't knock me out. Um, but it was a 1847, and it was dug in Charleston. If
wow.
anywhere along the way you've come across a tag that says it's from anywhere else than Charleston, it's not real. Bottom line, I don't care what anybody tells you. They only existed in Charleston and what was called Charleston Neck. Yeah, that's it right there.
Oh, wow.
Border tag. And I apologize because my Wi-Fi is awful
That's all right.
tonight. So,
Yeah.
but that was an amazing day when I dug that, and again, probably the most historical find, most valuable find if you want to put a dollar value on it. Um,
It's an amazing find. I'm telling you.
goes to that. So
So where's the most historical place you think you've been able to dig at? Like what, if you think about all the places that you've gone to dig, and I'm going to ask you about how you do your research without giving too much away here in a minute, but what do you think is the most historical place you've gone to dig?
I mean, I think the most historical place that I've been on has probably been Stoneman Switch in Stafford County, Virginia. I mean, it was a winter camp for um, the entirety of the war. It saw both Confederate and Union occupation. It was a supply depot. I mean, I've with the organized hunts, I've gotten to hunt some places that were extremely historic places that, you know, without that I'd never be able to go on by myself. Now that said, Essie once again. Um, Sorry.
She looked right at you.
I told you before this all started, I said, nobody's here. My wife's traveling with work. The kids are at college. The only thing I would have to worry about would be if the dog started barking, right?
That's
of course,
right.
The dog
No problem.
barking.
No problem.
Anyway, but I mean, it's probably the most historic site that I've ever been on is the British camp that me and Russ found.
Wow.
Because of what it stood for. I mean, these were British soldiers that were on their way basically up to build, you know, an outpost fort to fight the frontier, you know, to protect anybody living in the wilderness against the Indians. And this was mid-1700s. So, I mean, there literally was very little, if anybody, living up this way. And the coins we pulled out reflected that. The artifacts we pulled out of there, the relics. You know, the buttons. This was before marked buttons. There were no marked plates, anything like that. But we're, you know, digging shoe buckles, flat buttons.
Yeah.
That's probably the most historical site, and nobody, you know, other than us, basically, other than me and Russ, nobody knows it exists.
Put this up. Everyone, check this out. Everyone, take a look at this plate. Can you tell me about this plate, Greg? What makes it so special and why it's such a great find for those of us that don't know that much about your part of the country?
Okay, so what you're looking at there is a pre-Civil War stamped brass South Carolina militia plate. And, you know, clearly, you know, me and Russ, the sites we hunt, especially the Civil War sites, and even the earlier sites that we try to find up here in low country, wherever we are. I mean, you know, what we love to get into is South Carolina stuff, whether it's buttons or anything better than that. And we had actually gotten permission on, we'd found and gotten permission on basically a hilltop that we thought was a home site, you know, an early plantation house that he had identified using an old map. And, you know, walking into the woods, first thing we found a big stack of rocks, a big brick pile, and we're like, okay, there's a home site here. And so we started hunting and not finding much. A few flat buttons, a couple of, you know, copper coins, coppers here and there, and just little buckles and things, but nothing to write home about. And then Russ, I hear him yelling at me through the woods, kind of like this dog is back here behind me. He was yelling at me, and you know, and I see him like, you know, doing this number right around his midsection. What in the heck are you doing? And I walked up, and he's got his hands up like this, and then he drops down. I was like, what in the heck have you dug? He said, you won't believe it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to believe it until I actually walk up here and see it. And you can see all this in the video that I captured live as I walk up and I see that piece of brass laying in the hole. And, you know, when I saw it, I was like, I was as excited as though I had just dug it, because it's a bucket list find for me. You know, I'd love to dig a Confederate plate. Never dug that. But to dig a Confederate, and it's really pre-Civil War, but they wore them into the war. But to dig a South Carolina plate would be the top for me. Now, go ahead and attach a value to it so people understand the rarity of it. That plate is probably valued somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range.
Holy smokes!
That gives you an idea, and really that's, I know he's never going to sell it either, but that at least gives you an understanding of the rarity of it. And,
wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty exciting day for both of us. Me to be able to capture it on film, and Russ to actually dig it. Now I got to go get mine.
Absolutely, we all got to go get one now. You know, that's why I like going out with a digging partner, with some friends that are into the hobby. Also, it's for that reason. You know, I go out with my buddy Tony all the time, and I'm just as excited for him when he's finding stuff. Like last time we hunted together, it's been a while actually, Tony. We need to get out. I think we're gonna head out this weekend. But we chose two sides of the yard. We went door knocking. So we had two sides of this yard of this 1927 house. And we just got our stuff because we were all excited to get the permission and jumped in there. And he said, I'll take the right. I said, okay, I'll take the left. And then I realized that he's in the shade and I'm in the sun. But he started getting on it, man. He found the spots. He started getting on it. A place where they dropped everything. He just got on it. And, and I'm hamming it up in his video, giving him, the look and everything. But I'll tell you, I was really excited for him because every time he would beep, he'd be like, silver, got silver. I was like, oh, man, are you kidding? And then he'd be like, oh, I think I got another ring. And I'd be like, another ring? But it's fun. It's fun when your digging partners find something amazing and you can appreciate it right along with them.
When I first started doing this, I thought, okay, I'm just going to hunt by myself. Why would I want to hunt with somebody else? Because they may find the stuff, And I learned real quick, it's a lot more exciting to dig with somebody you trust, which is also a hard thing to find in this hobby. But if you find somebody who you can, that you can really trust as a digging partner, that can share the same enthusiasm. My wife, she puts up with it, but she honestly doesn't care. I come home with a nice button. She's like, that's nice, dear. But, I show Russ, if I dig a South Carolina button, he's going to be as excited for me as I would be for him digging something nice, too. And again, I like the documentary part of it, too. I get just as excited to be able to capture it on video as if I dug it myself. That's just kind of, I like it.
I'm trying to go back and find out who asked the question. I apologize. I can't find you right now, but they said, does your wife ever get angry about you bringing all that dirt into the house?
Yeah, I usually leave it outside till she's not here. Then I come in and wash stuff off. I've actually become. I've got like, my area where just the relics stay. And they're not in here. We're actually in my wife's office, so I'll go ahead and just kind of let you in that normally it doesn't look like this. I kind of set it up. So this is not the relic room. Actually,
that's not your lipstick container back there on the counter?
Not my Clinique, so yeah, unfortunately. But I figured it looked better than makeup. But she knows I know my stuff stays in the man room, I guess you can say. But she's I guess I've done it long enough, and she realizes that it's something I'm passionate about. And yeah, in the big picture, some of it does have some value. So I guess she's a little bit more tolerant of it.
What about your kids? Are your kids into it?
Not at all. Not at all. I have. I've got a picture that I took them both detecting at the local school one time, and let them hunt the playground, try to find some quarters or whatever might have been there. And within 10 or 15 minutes, they were swinging on the monkey bars. They just didn't care. And they really, they'll like my Instagram posts and they'll watch the videos, but they're not into it at all. Now my son has a love for videography.
I saw that.
He's a whole heck of a lot better than I am. Matter of fact, if you go to my channel and you watch the channel trailer, where it's got a picture of me kind of kneeling down in a cornfield, he actually produced that. And you can kind of get a picture of his work. He's really good at what he does. So I'm thrilled that he actually produced something for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think I remember seeing that and thinking, wow, well done. Does he hire out for work? Well, I'll get Wall Street. Yeah. Everyone send your email to SCdigger. He's very expensive. You don't get any discount or anything like that?
I think that was the only freebie I got for raising them, I guess.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, how about your oldest find? Greg, you have an oldest find?
Clearly my oldest find, not counting Native American stuff, my oldest metal detecting find is clearly came out of the British camp. And, to show the kind of stuff that we were digging there, Russ dug a 1744 4 real. I dug a 1712 French 6 deniers, and that wasn't the oldest thing I dug out of there. I dug a 1666 Rich Fellows farthing. It's a British farthing, and if you don't know what a farthing is, that's kind of like a store token, but it was also accepted as currency as well. Now, to dig a 1666 farthing in England is not that big a deal. To dig a 1666 farthing in upstate South Carolina is unheard of.
I just threw a picture of it up there.
I
It's
dug
pretty
it in
amazing.
its natural setting.
Yeah.
It wasn't like on somebody's chain, or it wasn't part of a bracelet and got lost by somebody modern. That was, for whatever reason, somebody passing through, going across that river crossing and stopping on top of that hill.
What's the whole Rich Fellows thing about?
That was the name of the fellow that created the farthing. I don't know.
Oh,
if
no kidding.
Store owner. It actually has 3 loaves of bread on it, and it was, I guess it was his store token, but it's attributed to him. Rich Fellows was the guy's name.
Wow.
And so when I originally dug it, the 2 L's in Fellows I thought was 77. I thought it was like 1770 something.
Oh, wow.
But once I researched it and got it identified, realized it was only produced in 1666. Was the only year that token was made, and so that's, to me, pretty amazing. I think I probably have dug in the upstate of South Carolina probably one of the oldest coins ever to be dug. Has to be.
Wow. How many bullets have you dug in your career? If you had to guess, you had to throw. Are you like McDonald's? Are there 40 billion served, or?
Yeah, well, no, nothing like that. But I mean, I know I've dug hundreds of period bullets. Now, you want to add in shotgun shells and modern bullets? Let's go into the thousands.
Yeah.
There was a time where I kept all those shotgun shell heads, but once I had, 10 or 11 gallon bags, Ziploc bags full of them, I didn't keep them so much anymore. And I know some people collect those. But yeah, I mean, I think I've probably got at least 20 different types. If you go to things like Gardners and Enfields and pistol bullets and Colts and the Spencers, different kinds. I've probably got 15 or 20 different variations.
There's a lot of information just about bullets out there, I'll tell you. And I don't know. Started learning about them.
I don't know bullets well at all. It's kind of like artillery. Yeah. I've dug fragments and fuses. I've never dug a full artillery piece, but I just don't know. You give me some people, they can see a fragment and tell you exactly what shell it's from.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Are you into genealogy at all? Have you traced your family history back? And
I did a lot of that research way back when, and again was mostly so I could try to identify if I had any Civil War veterans in my family, and actually realized I have 4 grandfathers that served. I've got a great-great-grandfather who was in the 19th South Carolina, who was killed at the Battle of Murfreesboro. I've got a great-great-grandfather that was a member of the 2nd South Carolina. I've got another. I actually had 2. 2nd South Carolina. 2 were in the 19th South Carolina because they were all from Edgefield. And then I've got one that was a great-great-grandfather that was in the 46th North Carolina and was actually a prisoner at Point Lookout, Maryland. And what's kind of neat, because they have a picture of him at the museum at Point Lookout.
Oh man,
so
how amazing is that?
Kind of cool. So, and I do have one great, 4 greats that was a Revolutionary War veteran from North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah, that kind of got me started, because I had that interest in history, and I said, well, since I have so many direct descendants who were Civil War veterans, that's kind of what got me started on wanting to find South Carolina stuff and so on.
It's addicting, boy, once you get in. I know I got into it about 5 or 6 years ago and ended up meeting all kinds of other distant family members that were out there searching too. So it's a lot of fun. Did, for somebody from Colorado, we don't have a lot of Civil War history here and not a lot of history. But you'd have to come out sometime and teach me how to dig and how to go look for Indian artifacts, because I still haven't figured that out, but I would love to.
I'm sure you've got it.
I'm sure we do.
Absolutely.
I just love to figure out how to go start searching for that. But how do you research your
high ground near water?
High ground near water.
That's what you're looking for.
All right. How do you go about starting researching information on Civil War camps and locations you might want to go dig?
What I've learned is that if it's well known. Like if it's something that showed up in the ORs, or everybody knew there was a battle here, those places, whether people had permission or not, have probably been looked at. The more public it ever was, the less of a chance of it not ever being found. We we do, and Russ is a much better researcher than I am. He's kind of my research guy, and I guess I'm the technology guy. But he, well, we do a lot of reading of diary. The British camp we found, Russ actually found. I say we. I got to hunt it. I was privileged to be there. But it came from kind of knowing the general area where they were traveling. But then he found a passage in a diary that was written in the mid 1700s by a lady, and basically she made a just like a one sentence comment about the fact that she said something like, from the house we can see the British camp, or we can see the British troops camped across the river.
Oh man.
It's basically all she said. Well, it started off by the fact that Russ found where this house site was. It was kind of like I get not really known, but by using convergence of rivers and where roads ran, we identified where the house was, and so we said, well, somewhere across that river, she can see a camp. And so basically, once we got access and permission to that property, we headed to the top of the hill, and the first thing he dug was a musket ball, and the second thing he dug was a shoe buckle, and he sent me a text going, "Look what I just found." And so we use historic aerials a lot, where we'll cross-reference, say, like if we get permission on a property, we'll find it on the historic aerials, historicaerials.com, and then use the slider tool and go back as far as you can, whatever the oldest aerials they have. And even even if they don't have aerials, if you go back to sometimes they have topographical maps there.
Sure, yeah.
And some of the early late 1800s, turn of the century topographical maps have house sites indicated on them as well. And you just use a slider and kind of look at where, the modern day image, compare it to an old map, and historic aerials is invaluable, really.
Yeah, it's an amazing site. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you can't get, tops that go back so far. I think, we've get 1895 around here is about as early as it gets. And, but yeah, I love that site. It's a great site. So so where do you have do you hunt any other, have you been featured in some magazines? Have you been featured in American Digger magazine, or have you gotten your finds in there?
Yeah, I've had stuff in, lots of stuff in American Digger. Actually, when they first started, I was on their editorial staff with Butch and them, and just my time just didn't allow me to continue to do that. But I've had stuff on the cover. I've written articles. I've had lots of just Doug stuff in American Digger. I have had stuff in Western and Eastern Treasure magazine. Actually have been fortunate enough to have two of my finds chosen as finds of the year for Western Eastern Treasure.
Really?
One was back in the early 2000s, like 2002, I think, was a cast brass one-piece CSA button, and my slave tag also made it back. When was that? 2015 or so. When I dug that. So I've actually had two finds there featured. I've actually had the local the local business magazine did a story on me once, which was kind of cool. So I had everybody locally going, "What do you do?" So that was kind of neat. So, but yeah, I'm a shameless self-promoter. I will certainly, if I got a chance to do a little PR, I will.
Do you ever donate any of your finds to local historical societies or museums or anything?
Well, I had the opportunity, and I think it's called the Smith McDowell House, which is up in Asheville, North Carolina. I had the opportunity, or was asked to come do a dig there, and the story was, it was always written in the books and stuff that somewhere along the way, some little girl who lived in the house had a gold ring, and that she had lost it somewhere along the way. And they'd even interviewed, her granddaughter who passed on the story and on. And so we got to hunt the Smith McDowell house, and about 2 hours in, I got a low target, and I dug a child's gold ring very near the window where the story said that she had tossed it out the window. And now we can't, 100% say that was it, but at the same time, WLOS, Channel 13 from Asheville, and Channel 7 from Spartanburg, WSPA, felt it was enough to do a story about it, and I got to be on TV and all kind of fun stuff. So, yeah, but going into it, I knew I was giving the museum there everything that we found. I've given homeowners lots of stuff. I mean, after a while, I hate to say it's just stuff, but because it's not just stuff, but I mean, when you dig so much brass and stuff, you just don't need all those heel plates or just nondescript buckles and flat buttons and things. I mean, Indian head pennies, I'll give those away. If I dig silver, I'm keeping silver unless I've already told I was going to give it to them. But I mean, I give landowners lots of stuff. Just for the privilege of being able to hunt their properties. So
yeah, sure.
So I think if you're willing to give back, whether it be whether you could put it in a public place like a museum or the landowner as a thank you, I think it's important we do that.
Right. How often do you get to go out these days? How often are you getting out? Probably not quite enough.
This summer, not at all. This summer was freaking hot, 95 degrees. We have, at least we call it digging season, which is basically January, February, and March.
No kidding.
Anything outside of that is a bonus because it gets hot, and I'm old, and I can't take it anymore. I watch these kids like Britton Lockhart, those guys who were digging in July, and it's 98 degrees in Atlanta, and they're just humping it. And I just can't do that anymore. But, the fields that we have access to are all planted in crops like cotton and soybean. The woods, they got too many creepy crawlies for me in the summer, and I don't like ticks and snakes. And deer season starts in the low country middle of August, and runs through January 1st. So that limits us to digging season, which is January, March, and February. So the woods are right down, the crops are gone, and it's either cold or cool. So
cool. So if I ever visit that part of the country, that's the time I want to come.
That's the time you want to be down here. Sure.
Awesome. I'll have to remember that one. So is there any place you want to dig? Is there any place you haven't been yet that is kind of on your wish list to go?
Bucket list? Well, I want to go to, I know it's kind of stereotypical, but I want to go to England. I mean, you see, these people digging Roman stuff. I mean, that's, that would be fun to do, I think. Kind of out of my budget, but I would love to do that one day. Just the history they're on top of versus what we have here. But one of my bucket listers is I want to go pan for gold in Alaska. I don't know why, but that's one of my things. Panning for gold in Alaska, going to Ireland and drinking a Guinness from a local pub. I did make it to Maine and eat a lobster, so I've gotten those things done. So yeah, going to England and digging Roman, and going to Alaska and digging gold. That's what's on my bucket list.